Hello, hello, hello. I see folks coming into the webinar and feed loop. We are live with our second session of the first night of the Grad School Success Summit. Man, I hope that if you were at the last session, you were blown away. Dr. Toyin is amazing. It had lots of great resources and advice and tips and strategies and mindset shifts for us. And we're going to keep it going. Today is all about balancing those things. How do we actually stay organized? What does that look like in grad school? And so this next session is from two of our wonderful, wonderful summit planners, but also they are grad students and they have expertise to share. So I'm really excited about this next session. And I'm going to give their intros and I'm going to turn it right on over to them. So first we have Krystina. And Krystina is an advocate for learning no matter the path. She's worked in higher education for more than a decade. She has a bachelor's degree in communications from the University of Phoenix and a Master of Science in Human Resource Management from Wilmington University. Krystina has extensive experience with distance learning from both sides of the coin, student and educator, which means she is perfect for the time that we're living in right now, right? And she has that experience, and it has given her an advantage to help students prepare to be successful while learning in these modern modalities. So I'm really excited for her expertise and what she's going to share with us. And next we have Mara, like one of my IG friends that is, I'm so excited. Mara Lopez, she is a mother of 2 under 6, a wife, and a full-time research program manager, part-time faculty associate, teaching undergraduate students, and a full-time Doctor of Education candidate. Her research centers curriculum redesign, career decision-making, self-efficacy, and culturally responsive pedagogy. She's worked in higher education for over 13 years in leadership and research capacities, and she is passionate about inclusive education, research, and mental and physical health. She's also a running noob, a former college athlete, certified yoga instructor, certified wedding officiant, loves to cook and dance salsa. So we are going to talk about all of these things. Well, they are. I'm going to actually go away. But Mara and Krystina, thank you so much for taking time to share what you all know with us today. Don't forget, you all drop your questions in the chat, throw a raised hand up to show them some love. And Mara and Krystina, I will pass it on over to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. Well, happy Monday, everybody. We're so excited to be here. I'm Krystina, and I'm really going to get started going through some different study techniques. I know this last year and a half has been beyond difficult for most of us. A lot of us are just shifting into a distance learning modality, and realistically, it's a big change, and there's a lot of different things that can help you. You just have to know that those things are there. Most of us are used to studying in one type of form. We're used to, either note taking or doing things a specific way. But this shift in the last 18 months has really caused people to look at what they're doing and kind of change that. So I'm going to go over some learning techniques, and then my colleague Mara, she's going to go over some additional balancing and time management techniques. So I'm going to start with the Pomodoro technique. And this is one of the techniques that I found really helped me when I had to focus a little bit more on a specified topic, okay? But before I go into that, the one thing I want you to kind of think about and write down, if you have pen and paper next to you, is what is your optimal study method? How do you typically study? How do you note take? What is your first method to go to? And I want you to think about that. And as you're writing that down and thinking about that, the next thing I want you to think about is that something that's still beneficial for the program that you're in now and how you're learning, okay? The Pomodoro method was realistically a time management method that was developed by Francesco Cirillo, okay? And he set a specified time period, which he called a Pomodoro. And funny story, he called it a Pomodoro because the timer that he used was literally a little Pomodoro tomato. And he set them for 25-minute periods. Now, you can typically go up or down 5 minutes in either direction, depending on how you learn. If you feel like 25 minutes is a little bit too long, you can dial it back a little bit. If you feel like you could go a little bit longer, do about 30 minutes. But once you've done 4 of these 25-minute periods, it's called a set, okay? Now, in between your Pomodoros, you're ideally going to want to take a break. Now, these breaks are really important and you don't want to skip them. You can do something as small as just getting up, walking around the room, coming back, just sitting at the desk, having a light snack, maybe having a cold glass of water, something crispy, crunchy, healthy, like maybe some veggie sticks, a nice fruit, but something that's going to allow you to kind of wake up. It's going to be refreshing. It's just going to give you that extra boost. Being able to come back, like step away from what you're doing and come back, will allow you to refocus. You won't kind of feel just kind of down in the dumps and kind of stuck in one area. Um, the other thing that you can do, again, do some quick exercises, do some jumping jacks for that 3 to 5 minute period. You can even go get another cup of coffee, something like that. You know, you don't want to have too much caffeine, but do something that kind of breaks that up for you, for those periods in between your Pomodoros. Now, once you've completed a set, if you need to continue studying, so this is for my people who are cramming. If you have to cram the night before a big test, or if you know, hey, I really need to get a lot of work done tonight, you're going to take a 15 to 30-minute break in between sets. This is so important because you want to make sure that you're not burning yourself out. This is going to give you an opportunity if you needed to make yourself a meal, if you needed to go and do some laundry, if you needed to go outside, get some fresh air. This is the time where you want to do that. This is the break for that. And these breaks are important because it's going to aid in retaining your information and prevent you from overloading. So, if you've been like me at one point in time, you literally sat there, you crammed a whole bunch of information, you sat there all night, you read, and then the next morning you got up, you went to class or what have you, you signed on to take your test, and you're like, I can only remember what I looked at in the first half hour to 45 minutes. And that's because your brain didn't have the opportunity to kind of soak everything in that it initially got and then move on to the next subject. So this is a great opportunity for you to break up your sets, okay? And then you're just going to start that time period over, and you're going to start with your Pomodoros. You typically don't want to do more than 4, okay? And you want to make sure that if your Pomodoro does get interrupted, so we know. For myself, it's probably a sibling or my mom. For Mara, it might be one of her children that comes in and is like, Mom, I need this, that, and the third. So we don't know what your interruptions could be, but you actually want to stop your Pomodoro at that time. And it's important to make sure that you record all of your information that you've been working on so you kind of know where you left off. But that would be a good time to kind of bump your break up because your focus has already been broken. So you want to make sure that, hey, I can get my flow back. So you're going to start all over again and then continue with your sets. Okay. Now, for me, I like to kind of keep ticks on my notebook, but I'm kind of old school when it comes to these different methods. But if you're someone that is very technologically advanced or you like to use your phone or things of that nature, there is an app called Pomodoro Hero. Okay. You can access this app on an Android or an iPhone, and it allows you, it has a little cute timer in the app, and it will allow you to not only keep track of your Pomodoros, but it'll help you keep track of your sets. And I think this is a really good thing for people who can kind of get lost in their study time. Okay. Um, and this really just helps you reduce your internal and your external interruptions. If you're anybody like me, I honestly get easily distracted at times. So having these shorter time periods allows me to kind of get in and get out. and then get in and get out and kind of do that over and over again. So that is our first method. So now we're going to go into our second method. And that is actually mind mapping. This is one of the most interesting study methods that I've ever seen in my life, but ironically enough, it really, really works. Mind mapping dates back to third century Rome. Okay, so it didn't exactly look like the photo that you see here, but if you think of any type of like flow chart or something to that extent, they all kind of started in this realm. Okay, modern mind mapping, or something to the effect of what you see here, was introduced by British psychologist Tony Buzan. And realistically, he felt that if you could literally map out your thoughts, what you're studying, what you're trying to retain, and create more of a photo for yourself, 9 times out of 10, it'll be easier for you to recall that information, and aiding in retention overall. Okay. So what you would do with your mind map, you would actually just start with a nice sheet of paper. Again, I'm old school, but there are apps for this as well. But you would start with your main concept, okay? And you put your main concept in the middle of your page. Once you have that concept, you're literally going to start drawing branches off of that concept, okay? And the point of this is to really create the area for your subtopics, okay? And those subtopics may have additional subtopics that you'll need to explore. One of the things that I have learned to do is, once I kind of get my initial and secondary subtopics, I look at them and you can review them and say, okay, have I expanded this initial subtopic to the point in which I have enough information here, or do I need to keep going? In the event that you do need to continue, you can create more branches, or you can use what you see here. Some people will create acronyms from their branches, like you see in that green section for acre, or they'll simply draw pictures, okay? And this way, a lot of people who are visual learners, who don't necessarily retain words from like just note taking, they can visualize these pictures when they're trying to recall this information. Okay. Adding images and colors for creativity allow you not only to specify the work that you're learning. So I have students that have used mind maps and they color code them. So they use their mind maps for one topic as green, like maybe their accounting class is green because they think of money, and that's how they do their mind mapping there. And then they'll continue with different topics, different subjects, and they'll make them different colors. But there are apps for Android and iPhone users. So one of the apps is called Xmind, and the other one is Lucid Chart. And these apps are really, really creative, because not only do they allow you to make your more traditional mind map like you see here, but they allow you to make different types of flow charts. So you can kind of start at the top and like whittle your way down, or you can do something different. However, creating this type of chart will allow you to make a path more so along the way your mind works, as opposed to what is traditionally done in the classroom. These two different methods have been placed here, and I picked these two specifically because I know the last 18 months have been crazy, coming off of COVID, coming out of traditional learning. You're going to need something different, and this will kind of give you the boost that you need, especially if you're transitioning into a distance learning, where sometimes it's not as easy to just sit down at a computer and focus for 2 hours. So if you're used to going in and out of the classroom, these two techniques can help you be successful. Okay, so after hearing about these two techniques, there's a third thing that I want you to write down. Okay. After hearing about these two, I want you to write down which one you think would best help you in your individual study time, and explore them. Explore them, take notes for yourself, and just say, hey, this is working with this isn't working. And if one doesn't work, try the other one out. But either way, utilize these to see if they can aid and assist you in just being able to have a little bit more flow, a little bit more focus that you're used to, especially if distance learning is something that's new for you. Okay. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Mara so she can have some time to bring you guys back into the self-care realm, because we got to take care of ourselves as well. As much as we got to do our work, we got to make sure we're okay. So Mara, I'm turn it over to you.
Yes, thanks, girl. I appreciate that. So informative. So Alante shared with you a little bit about a lot of my life. Needless to say, my schedule looks pretty intense. And this last year, like Krystina was saying, it was pretty intense, right? Working from home, homeschooling my babies from home. I got a harsh reality check. And that was that I was not previously making any time for myself or my self-care as a mom with competing priorities and a grad student, making time for anything other than tending to my familial duties and the countless projects seemed like all I could do. Then I realized how important it was to stop neglecting myself. I was suffering from severe burnout. I had anxiety creeping in at like the most inappropriate times. Not that it's ever appropriate, but definitely at the inappropriate times. And I just started by taking a walk in the park. I walked 1 mile, I walked 2 miles, then I walked 3. Then I found on Instagram a community of runners. And I was like, I'm not a runner. That movement just seems so aggressive to me. I can't do that to myself. I wasn't mentally prepared, but they offered so many variations, right? But more than anything, they offered accountability and support. And they had these like weekly challenges and I participate in some. And it just became such a really cool thing. My babies started to expect that, mommy's going to the park. And that too was a process because they're a part of every aspect of my life. They had to adapt to a new shift in our routine as well. And little by little, it became a habit. I started to carve out some time to tend to my physical and subsequently my mental health. Then I carved out time to play with my babies. And I was very strict with the time that I invested in my scholarly work. We've all been in academia long enough to know that if you give someone an inch, sometimes they'll take a mile. So if you say that you're available, they'll suck up all that time. Well, I started to be better about setting my boundaries, be better about the time I dedicated to my scholarly work. And then I made a list. I made a list of things that bring me joy. And I started to find ways to make it work little by little. I didn't realize that I wasn't attending to the things that seem so effortless. It's like attending to things that bring me joy. And I also stopped striving for balance. Like there were days where, one thing would throw off the agenda and then for the entire day, and I would be thrown into this like massive panic and this tailspin. I was so attached to this idea of finding this balance between motherhood and being in academia and being a full-time, program manager, but I was striving for something that just really didn't exist. And it was otherwise unattainable. So I would always feel defeated. Now, instead, cognitive shift and things like that we learn about, I seek harmony. And, if one thing doesn't happen, something else will. If one of the many balls that I have in the air drops that day, I know that others are still moving. And this shift in perspective has helped me shift my focus, increase my ability to tend to my own self-care, and with consistency, because consistency too can be hard. I used to set all these like balanced schedules, like I have to work out X times a week and this and that. And when it wouldn't pan out, I would like stop going altogether, or I would only go, after a few weeks. It's really wild, the tricks that my mind was playing on me. And the more I shared this experience, other people were like, yeah, same, And so again, I seek harmony instead of balance, and I do so with consistency. And my husband jokes, he's like, you're over here like Destiny's you're childing your life, harmonizing everything. But that cognitive shift for me really changed everything, and it allowed me to tend to the things that I had really put on the back burner, and that traditionally grad school doesn't really encourage you to integrate, or at least it didn't when I started. And also, I can't stress this enough, find your people, accountability partners, a community. all of that helped me so much, and they still do. So that's my self-care tips. Now, I have been, so these are some of the apps, you know how everyone's always like, there's an app for that, there's an app for that, there's an app for that. So I am going to present to you some of the apps for that, that I have found successful, both through my master's program and now as I'm sort of navigating my doctoral program. So Connected Papers is a visual tool to help researchers find academic papers relevant to their field of interest. I had been using Google Scholar a lot, and I still do sometimes, but I like Connected Papers because it shows you a diagram of prior works related to the paper that you click on and derivative works from the paper. And for the most part, it filters for the most, like it starts at the most frequently cited articles related to the topic you typed into the search box. I really like Google Scholar sometimes too, because that tool gives you various different citation formats that you can just copy and paste. But all articles you find in Connected Papers have a Google Scholar icon that you can just click on that and get the citation if you're like me and you're lazy and you don't want to manually type it out. So that's Connected Papers. Zotero is a reference management tool that helps you collect, organize, cite, and share your research sources. The cool thing about Zotero is that you can create these like bins of sorts within the app. It is free if you use it just on one computer. If you sync it and you add it to your browser, which I personally would recommend, your cloud storage might run out maybe quicker, and you might need to pay at some point to expand your storage box. I have yet to do that, and I've been using Zotero for the last 3 years. But it is really neat because once you have it on your browser, while you're reading an article and you want to add it to your Zotero bins or whatever themes you have in there, you just click on the little Zotero icon and it just pops right into your Zotero file. So that's really cool. Also, Zotero has this in-text citation component, which is also really cool. Again, I'm very lazy with citations, and Zotero helps with that. So there's an app for that. Now, I'm in the data analysis process of my work. And so I've kind of just recently started to do some exploration for what I can use for data analysis. And Deduce is one of them. It helps you organize and analyze your research data, no matter what form that takes. I'm a part of a Leaders Scholars community, and they did a search for the most, or we all did a search for the most easy to use data analysis tool. And the consensus was Deduce was amazing. It's been great for all of us thus far. Most of us are doing mixed methods studies. So our data is both qualitative and quantitative. And this tool has been great in helping us analyze and code all of our data. So that's for data. Also for data is the Otter AI. It's transcription. It turns your voice conversations into smart notes that you can easily search and share. I've really enjoyed using this tool, and I kind of stumbled upon it because all of my focus groups and lectures were through Zoom, and I forgot to set the Zoom thing to transcribe everything. So I was kind of scrambling to get my stuff transcribed, but I really have enjoyed using this tool. You can often find a coupon or a discount code to use it lying around, but if not, you do get 3 free transcriptions without paying. And then outside of that, I think it's like $12 a month for the service fee. Some departments I have come to find will help you pay for some of these things too, if you use it for like X months. I've been really pleasantly surprised by the accuracy of the transcription. It provides you with some basic preliminary codes too, based on some of the most frequently used words. And it shares with you de-identified information already based on the speaker. So it has like speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3, and you can kind of start to conceptualize these things and start to find like a little baby thematic analysis using Otter and what they provide for you already in there. So again, you get the transcription and you get some data points. And again, Zoom is free and it does provide transcription, but I've used Otter and I really like it, so I thought I'd share. So additionally, Google Drive, all the Google things I have found to be super helpful. Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Docs, all of them are, for the most part, easily shareable. They're saved easily and automatically, and it's a really good resource if you're working collaboratively. I use Google Drive for data sharing, and I also use it for co-working. So I'm working on different grants for NSF through my work. And so we have our proposal, and the whole team is kind of is always kind of intermittently in the Google Docs and uploading the Google Sheets. It all works sort of seamlessly. And it saves instantly. It's easy to use to co-work on documents with your team. And even I have my advisor on my Google Drive, and she can see what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but for the most part, really good. And most of us know what WhatsApp is, but I wanted to include that in here because for me, it has been, especially in this last year, a mode of communication that has been so amazing. My leader scholar communities, we have Androids and iPhones and this and that, and all of us can use WhatsApp seamlessly, and it works well with all devices, I think, so far. We can also text, we can share documents in there, we can share links and updates. I highly recommend some sort of messaging app like this to stay connected with your scholar community. I have a little bit of time, so I want to share a few more that I didn't get to add cutely onto this page, but I'm going to share with them now because I have a little bit of time. So I forgot to add in here some other apps that I frequently use, and one of them is Grammarly. So I've been using Grammarly since my master's program. I found it was like 6 years ago. Oh my God, I'm getting old. But I have it on everything. I have it on my phone. It syncs seamlessly with all my Google Docs. It's really good. It's a common app it tracks common grammatical mistakes like misused commas, or if you pay a little extra, and I use the free version, but if you pay a little extra, it can also scan for complex things like misplaced modifiers. And again, I've been using this since my master's program. I find it works really well. It's like another check, right? As we're writing our dissertations and we're writing proposals and things like that, as many free checks as we can get, I mean, definitely all for it. Another app that I use and I have used for a long time is Spotify. And I know that sounds random, and I'm sure everyone knows everything about it, but it's my favorite music streaming app. I've created study playlists on there, writing playlists in there. I've shared with study buddies in there. We share our own playlists with each other in there. And I think it's like a really cool tool to just keep you in the headspace to study, and you can share and see what other people are listening to as well. Another messaging app that I've used more for workspaces is Slack. Unlike WhatsApp, this is a messaging app that's most often used associated with like work-related tasks, work-related spaces. What I like about Slack is that it has the ability to create themes, and you can create these things, and they're kind of like hashtags, so you guys can track the sort of same thing. So if everyone's analyzing their data, you can do a theme called data analysis. So in your group, you can refer back to this theme for these things, or quantitative or qualitative or transcribing, and you can kind of track these things in Slack. Another app that I'm using and started only recently using is Trello, which is like a user-friendly and very visual app to help you keep on top of tasks and deadlines. You can create work boards in there, and there's an app for that. So, and then lastly, a few other apps that I only just recently downloaded, maybe about 2-3 weeks ago. One of them is called Forest app, and it's a simple game that keeps you off of social media. So I'm all over my Twitter, I'm all over my Instagram, and I mean, many of us are. And sometimes that can get a little problematic. So Forest, essentially, like if you keep your trees growing, or it's a simple game that helps keep you off of social media. So if you keep your trees growing, if you don't, it resets to seedlings. It follows like the Pomodoro writing interval technique, so 25 minutes. and provides an opportunity to plant real trees. And so it's kind of a cute, quirky way to keep your social media time down to a minimum. And you can kind of set what that is too. And then lastly is Headspace. It's a really wonderful app to help calm anxiety, manage your thoughts through meditation and relaxation. I am a certified yoga instructor. I have practiced for well over 12 years now. And even for me, I still kind of have anxiety, and this app has been really helpful at helping me center and kind of invest in that little time. So that's all I got. That's all the apps for that I have.
Mara, those are some great apps. And I think that everybody is going to really, advantage from hearing about all the different ways that you were able to use them. And one of the things that I kind of, really just wanted to go into just really quickly is with us kind of coming back into the classroom, setting, because I know some people, like their semesters or their classes were absolutely like stopped at one point. I definitely want to go into just the idea of applying for different scholarships, fellowships, things of that nature. I know that it seems like a lot of people have stopped that, and a lot of places aren't offering as much funding as they were at one point in time. But I do want people to know that there are still places out there that are giving scholarships, they're giving grants, and it's just a matter of research and going through and finding them. I often tell my students that it's more like a part-time job sometimes, but if you stop and you use the different websites, such as FastWeb, but FastWeb isn't the only place for people to go. You got collegeboard.org. You have your local, a lot of people forget about their local churches, their places of worship. There are different nonprofit organizations in your neighborhoods. But most importantly, and one that I really want to talk about, is your job. So for people who are working right now, there's a law that was passed through all of the COVID, relief stuff, where companies are actually receiving money to help you pay off your either tuition, I believe your student loans. And they get up to $5,250 to help you pay towards your education. And the biggest thing that I want to encourage people to do is, if you know that your job is offering tuition reimbursement, or even if you don't, go to your HR departments and make sure that you ask these questions. These companies are really going to benefit as far as tax breaks are concerned from doing this and from offering this to their employees. But not only that, if you can save some money along the line somewhere, you definitely want to. And for some of the companies, some of the bigger companies, this is in addition to the tuition reimbursement or remission that they are already offering. So you definitely want to make sure that you look into that for these specific companies. And you want to make sure that when you are going through the process of reaching out and looking for scholarships and grants and things of that nature, make sure that you reach out to people. Even with Visionary Education Services, like, we like to help students just in the process of knowing what to write, how to write it, because that is one of the biggest concerns. And don't forget that there are scholarships where you literally just need to apply. Everyone gets so afraid of doing the scholarship applications because they think that they need to write a long essay. That's not always the case. Some of them are GPA based, some of them are program based. I've even seen scholarships for people who are left-handed, people that live in certain areas of the country, certain areas of the world. And I know this is going to sound weird. Just make sure you are searching for the right things. But a lot of my students have found scholarship applications on TikTok. Now, I know, especially for the people in my age bracket, they're like, TikTok, what? Yes, I'm telling you, TikTok is one of the apps that I've recently learned how to use. And I have really just put in different educational things. And there is a big pool of higher educators. There's a big pool of students, graduate students on TikTok, and they're actually sharing this information as well. So I would say get yourself an account with TikTok. You don't have to look at anything else. You can specifically search for educational things, but that was the way that a lot of my students found much simpler applications where it would just require you doing the application, putting in your information, and then maybe your GPA or the school in the area that you're in, or honestly just being thrown into a pool and they've done some random selections. But the more you take the opportunity to do those things, the better you'll come out in the end. I know if you're only doing one application here and there, it's not likely that you'll find one all the time. But if you do take the time to kind of focus and use your Pomodoro technique or your mind map technique and write out places that you found that you want to apply to, places that have the amounts of money that you may be looking to, and don't snuff at $100 scholarship, because I'm telling you, that could cover a book, it could cover a resource fee. So any ones that you can apply for, please go ahead, do the applications. It's very important to get that information to all of you. And I know we're going to be going into question and answer soon. So I just want to give you guys that little tidbit to make sure that you knew that there are places that are out there that are still giving away scholarships and grants.
So I get a tuition remission. It's about 80% because I work full time at ASU, and ASU has provided me with a tuition remission. The one thing that I didn't know when I received the tuition remission is that all of it's taxed. So it's seen as income. And so if and when you do find that your work or your school or whatever will provide a tuition remission, I would just maybe be cognizant about what that means and how that might affect another scholarship you have, because mine doesn't. But I know that in the industry outside of academia, I have a friend that it did affect her scholarship. So just something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. That was a really good suggestion, Mara. And it's one of those things that's out there, but I'm glad we kind of got that early.
Great. Well, great job, ladies. Are you ready for Q&A?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to go in the order of like the upvotes. So the first question I see is, what content can I use for mind mapping? It's like, I like tables. Me too. So what, but I could try mind map. So what type of work do you think is ideal for mind mapping?
Okay. So I do feel like mind mapping, depending on like how you learn, I think a lot of people that are in more like fact-based, so whether it's like a math class, an accounting class, or like science, where you can kind of start with like, okay, here is the heart, where like the arteries, the different things that you can point out to make branches, different things that attach to the heart or something to that effect. However, you don't always need to have like very specific points when you're doing your mind mapping. You can use your mind mapping for like a writing assignment or a writing class. I've done that before. I've actually used my mind maps at work as well. I used to be in sales, and I would use my mind maps to learn my clients. So I would start with their name in the middle, and then because I'm trying to sell you something, I want to make sure that I'm learning what you're looking for. So I would say, okay, what is their goal? How much money do they have to spend? What are some potential obstacles? What are some things that I know they absolutely don't want? And then what are some things that I know that they don't know about yet, but I could suggest to them? And then I would literally create additional branches off of my initial subtopics. But realistically, you can use it for just about anything. It's all about how you look at it. And your branches and your subtopics don't need to be like 1 or 2 words. They can be short sentences. They can be, like you saw, they can be acronyms. Like, you can tailor it to what you need. I do see like some students find it easier if it is for something like an accounting class where you're writing, different numbers back and forth, but you can expand it. You can make it what you need it to be.
Cool. Okay, so thank you for that. I have another question. There's a lot, so I want us to get through as many as we can before we have to wrap up. Another question for both of you all. This is this person's, their first year in graduate school was virtual because it was during the pandemic. But do you have any advice on preparing to return in person for grad school? What do you all think we should be doing to make sure we're ready to be back in the classroom in the fall?
I actually, so I teach undergraduate students also part-time in addition to doing my research program manager position full-time. And so I've done like every modality. I was in person, and then we went abruptly online, and then it was like this hybrid. And I actually went back to teach in person to 50% in this past spring. What I realized, I'm teaching undergraduate students, so it's a little bit different, but what I did realize is that students needed maybe some coping mechanisms. There were a lot of students that were very nervous, apprehensive. So I came in the first week of school and I was like, I have these resources for you. These are like mental health resources. This is like the gym membership. This is like academic advisors. And so I think that it's like a full court press, right? I was also a former college athlete, so all of my like analogies are all sports related. So it's a full court press. I would go in with everything that you need, the contact for your academic advisor if you find that because when you start school, it can be overwhelming if you decide that this is not what you want. Are there any modifications? Can you go back to doing partial, like part-time? So have your academic advisor find out what resources are available. If you find that it might be cumbersome or overwhelming, and just find your community of support too, always, because it can get hard. Being in grad school can be a very isolating experience. I'm at a predominantly white institution. As a woman of color, it could be very big. And so finding your community of support, I think, would be ideal for someone that's returning back to school and hasn't been there yet in a while.
Those are absolutely great suggestions. That's all I think you took all of them, Mar.
That's good. I'm like, because there's a couple more. I think I saw like two. One was like asking about fellowships versus scholarships. So where can we find fellowships? I'm gonna plug ProFellow. They've actually been a speaker during the summit. They have a lot of great fellowships. And so if you have other recommendations, and also if you know of any places for international students for them to find funding, if you have any resources or ideas, I know that would be helpful to the audience.
Yeah, so I used to be a fellowship advisor at UCSD in San Diego. And I always used GRAPES, which is at UCLA. They have this fellowship, scholarship, and grant website on their UCLA page. And you can kind of filter international students, citizens, non-citizens, things like that. And you can filter by date, you can filter by expertise, you can filter by interest, field of interest. So I thought that UCLA's GRAPES website was really good.
I was actually going to go with ProFellow, Alante. So, and not only that, like, don't be afraid to like reach out to the schools that you're interested in to see what they offer. I know sometimes being on the other side of it, they don't post everything. So sometimes you just have to advocate for yourself and go out there and ask for what you need. And a lot of times when they see you putting that foot forward, they'll say, okay, we have these different things in the bag. Sometimes they keep stuff in the tuck, and they'll give it to you if you ask for it.
Absolutely. Closed mouths don't get fed. That's what
Yes.
So another question, and Mara, I know you mentioned that you have tuition remission. And so can you maybe explain what that means for those of us who aren't familiar with that term? Because I feel like that's a very much so grad school concept.
Yeah, so the tuition remission that I have, it takes out 80% of my tuition and it pays it up front. I get the option to wait to get taxed at tax time, or get taxed at the time that they take it out. So that's what I choose. And so it's a big hit to my salary for me, because I work full time at ASU, which is the only reason why I'm allowed to get, or I'm eligible for the tuition remission. They see the tuition remission as income. and taxable income at that. And they tax like 20% here in Arizona. So basically the tuition remission means that they pay for 80% of my tuition, but then they tax me on it. So, and I didn't know that the first year. And I think the way they do it is they tax me at the end of the semester, which happened to be like December. So right before like Christmas, all the holidays and stuff. And I was like, what is wrong with my paycheck? And they're like, it's the tuition remission. I was like, yikes. So I would just plan out for that, or maybe ask your financial aid counselor and be like, what does this mean? Actually, we have to go to the business office because it's not financial aid. It's related to our employment. Does that help?
And
does that answer your question?
I think so. And for those of you all who maybe aren't working and get tuition remission, there's tuition waivers. So that's like if you do research at your university and you're like a full-time grad student, and the same thing happens as far as taxing. It depends on the state, and there's some things that, you know, you need to talk to a tax professional. I am not a tax professional. I know Mara has many certifications, so maybe she's a tax preparer as well, but I am not. So, you know, talk to a tax professional, and there are a lot of resources for graduate students as far as personal finance. But that is something, like Mara said, you want to like prepare for, right? Lots of love in here. There's some more apps that were asked about. So I'd love to get you all's kind of, let me know, what do you all think of MindMeister? Have you heard of that one?
I have heard of MindMeister. I mean, honestly, it really, for me, the change as far as like what app you're going to use is the dashboard, like the format of it. And it really just depends on what you like. All of these apps that I'm seeing, that MindMeister, Lucidchart, Xmind, like they all have pretty much 4 stars in either App Store, or Google Play, or what have you. But it really just depends on what you like to see. Like I liked Xmind because it had so many different options for me to use. So I could do like a straight up mind map, or I could do a flow chart. I could do something more like tables. That was like a smaller scale Excel, like pivot table, something to that effect. So it really gave me a lot of different options as far as what I wanted to use moving forward.
Okay. And give me a quick yes or no. Google Jamboard. I see a no.
No.
Krystina? No. Okay. Mind Manager.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Todoist.
Yes, I like Todoist too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And then for the Pomodoro technique, I just wanted to add that flow is really good for Pomodoro technique too. It helps you kind of stay on task, and that's a different one that I was just recently exploring. When Krystina and I started talking about the Pomodoro technique, I was like, there has to be an app for that. So flow.
There's an app for everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, ladies. And if you all have any other questions about apps, throw them in the Q&A. We'll do another fire round of yes or no's on apps. Someone asked, do you have any advice on how to balance wanting to get organized versus using organization as a way of procrastinating? I'll make mind maps all day, but sometimes I need to do the thing.
So that's me, honestly. I'm one of those people that I have found that talking to my counterparts. So my counterparts would be my sister, my business partner, because we're all busy. But if I kind of use it as a competition, and, you know, healthy competition, we don't want to be, you know, battling anybody out for work. But if I'm like, okay, my sister she is getting down, she's focused, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna let her out focus me. And sometimes you have to find what like your motivator is. It's really just sitting down and saying, okay, I've organized this to death. And sometimes it's just about taking a leap of faith. I know sometimes when you're organizing and you're trying to readjust and perfect it, it's a fear. It's about fear. And sometimes you just gotta just swallow that fear and say, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And you just have to take that jump. And one of the things you can do outside of your organizing is write down what's scaring you, what is scaring you, and why it's scaring you. And once you've kind of said, okay, this is what's terrifying me about this, then you decide, okay, how can I attack that? And 9 times out of 10, when you realize why it's making you nervous or why it's scaring you, you can say, okay, you know what? I can get past this. If you need to write positive affirmations, you guys can't see my wall, but I have a bunch of like sticky notes with positive affirmations on the wall, because when I get to the point where I'm like, you know what, I can't do this, or I'm feeling like, you know what, it's not just right. I look at those and I say, you know what, because you don't know if it's wrong unless you do it. You don't know if what you planned out isn't working unless you put it to the test. So sometimes if you got to make it a competition, if you have to set mini goals for yourself, I'm a mini goal girl. I have a whiteboard and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write these mini goals to get to the big goal. So sometimes if you make it smaller, as opposed to trying to focus on the big thing, if you get through the little things, then you'll get to that big thing. So kind of break it down for yourself.
I second all of that. I have a whiteboard right here. It's got all my affirmations on it. I was like, maybe I don't do that, but it's over here. It's got all these Post-it notes. It's all my quotes and stuff. Yeah. But I think that sometimes mind mapping can seem as like time consuming and a time suck, right? And we're wasting time. But I also want to impress upon everyone that's listening is that it is important and it's valuable. And if you're in the data collection phase or you're even in the data processing phase, you can also use these mind maps as a sort of data collection resource. This is kind of how you are processing things. This is how you're seeing things. This is the information that you're kind of absorbing and integrating that into your data process too, depending on what you're doing maybe.
I love that. I love that. And you know what? I think that you all both have, great strategies and approaches to that. Now, the next question I see here, I actually thought I might have missed it. And if I did, I'm sorry, but I remember it. Two parts. One, how do you get over sleep deprivation for the academic moms? And then how do you manage mom guilt, right? With balancing, Mara, you do a lot of things. So how do you manage or, think about mom guilt as you are handling all of your business?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that this question was asked because it is really important. And I think that we have, as a society, really embraced this term, mom guilt, as a way to perpetuate this idea that women and mothers are less than or less, it depreciates our mothering abilities because we also are pursuing professional or academic stuff. And it just makes me cringe so much. But I also have absorbed a lot of the blows related to mom guilt, right? And so when I finished it took me almost 12 years to finish my bachelor's degree because I was up and down, no mentorship, kind of working this and that all over the place. I was just like a whole different person 10 years ago. But it took me a really long time. When I graduated, my daughter was 6 months old. I went on to pursue my master's. And when I graduated my master's program, my son was 6 months old. I'm now about to, and hopefully will complete my doctorate program, and they're going to be 7 and 4, right? So they have only ever known me as a full-time working mom and student. I think that sometimes it can be, I think what some people think is ideal is the kids are over there and I'm over here and they're just going to be over there and I'm just going to be over here. What has helped for me is integrating them as a part of this process. They're going to grow up and they're going to be like, well, my mom was in school all the time. But they're also going to know that I make time for them. So there are some days where they're, TV drunk, just like all hopped up on TV and their iPads and, pizza and chicken nuggets. And just like, that's what you get because I have a deadline or whatever. But when they have days like this, we have a conversation like mommy has to work. Mommy has this, mommy has that. And I want you to know I value you. I also value this because I value myself. So we're going to work all through this. Then tomorrow we'll go to the pool. The day after that, we'll go to the park. We'll make a memory. We'll go to the golf thing or whatever. We'll do the thing. Alante follows me on Instagram, so she knows I'm all over the place. That's how I mitigate having this feeling because I don't want either for my babies to ever feel like I didn't make time for them to make memories. I also don't want grad school to determine what I do with my life. I was in a podcast and I got asked, well, how do you do? Like, should we date? Is dating okay in grad school? I have to move. Like, can I buy a house in grad school? And I'm like, we also have to relinquish this idea that grad school is us, a whole us, right? Because we are people outside of academia and outside of this process. I'm a mother outside of this process, and I will not allow grad school to define who I am, what I do, and how I do it, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so, but you know, I empathize because mom guilt, there's society perpetuates it, but you take your power back. I have taken my power back by integrating my babies into this process. They're just as proud of me as I am of myself. And they're graduating with me, you know, because they've also made the sacrifices with me. They also know it's temporary.
I love that. I think that is amazing. Ladies, believe it or not, we have 4 minutes to our next session. So we are gonna have to wrap it up. And no more questions came in, but I mean, I think that was a really beautiful place to end. You all see the tags to follow Krystina and Mara on Instagram and social media and connect with them. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, sharing your experiences with us tonight. You all raise your hand, you know, give them some raised hands if you can't clap or drop in the Q&A. And
oh my God.
And thank you. Again, Krystina and Mara, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.